There was blood on her heel. Just a smear. Faint. Barely noticeable unless you were staring. I was. It was crusted into the strap, the cheap silver kind you buy last minute when you forget your real shoes. She was passed out across our bed, face down, still wearing her makeup. One eyelash strip had peeled halfway off, curled like a dying spider above her cheekbone. I stood there, holding a grocery bag, trying to figure out if I was hallucinating. Because this was the morning after her bachelorette party, and my fiancée came home with someone else's blood on her heel. The apartment was too quiet. No text the night before. No, made it home safe. Not even a drunk selfie. Just silence. Which would have been fine if I hadn't woken up at 2:16 a.m. to the front door creaking open, her keys hitting the floor, and the sound of something shattering. Glass, maybe. She didn't come to bed. When I peeked around the corner, she was sitting on the kitchen floor, mascara streaked, holding a slice of wedding cake from our tasting box, eating it with her fingers like an animal. I didn't say anything. I backed away, quietly, and just waited. Now it's 6:42. She's snoring lightly. Her veil is still clipped into her hair. And I'm standing there, in yesterday's hoodie, staring at the blood on her heel, the faint bite mark on her shoulder, and a green wristband that says, Admit 1. Garden room. Private access. The garden room? What the hell is that? There's a faint buzzing sound. A phone. Her phone. Lighting up on the nightstand. I shouldn't have looked. But I did. The messages. There were 3 unread ones. All from a contact saved as M. No photo. Just the emoji. Weird. The most recent message read, She said we're not telling him. So you better delete the footage. The one before that. Tell her to text me when she wakes up. We're not in trouble, but people are asking. And the first one. You have no idea how close it got. My hand started shaking so bad I nearly dropped the phone. This isn't just cheating. I've been cheated on before. I know the signs. I know the aftermath. But this felt different. Calculated. Like something happened. Something big. And whatever it wasn't just about me anymore. I went looking for answers. I left the room. I didn't wake her. I couldn't. Instead, I followed a trail. A subtle one. Her purse was on the kitchen island. Half open. Inside. Lipstick. A receipt from a rideshare service. And a card key with the words, Garden Room, Level 3, printed on it in gold. The receipt showed a drop-off location, the Varnette Hotel. That's not where the bachelorette party was supposed to be. They were meant to be downtown, doing karaoke, nothing fancy. A chill night. That's what she said. But the Varnette? That's one of those rooftop, champagne bar, password at the door kind of places. So why lie? And more importantly, what the hell happened in the garden room? I've already made a decision. I'm going there. Today, I'm taking the card key, the receipt, and the growing nausea in my stomach. Because whatever they did, whatever they're hiding, they weren't careful enough. And I have this feeling, deep in my gut, that the truth is worse than I can imagine. I didn't wake her. I just took the key card and the receipt and left. It was early. The streets still smelled like last night's beer and wet pavement, and I hadn't even brushed my teeth. My hoodie was inside out. I didn't care. I drove in silence. The Varnette Hotel's address glowing from the back of that receipt like coordinates to another dimension. When I pulled up, I knew instantly something was off. There was no sign that said the Varnette. No valet, no buzz, no fancy entrance. Just a tall gray building sandwiched between a vape shop and a shuttered yoga studio. The only indication that I was in the right place was a small, brushed metal plaque next to a black-tinted door. V. That's it. Just a letter. I tried searching it online while parked out front. Nothing. No website. No business listing. No Varnette Hotel within 60 miles of our zip code. I don't know what kind of place doesn't exist digitally in 2025, but this one doesn't. And yet, the card key worked. Inside was something else. The hallway smelled like jasmine and stale perfume. The kind of scent that tries to be classy but sticks to your clothes like smoke. There were no front desks, no concierge, no cameras I could see. Just this long, moody corridor with velvet walls and golden sconces dimly flickering. The card said Garden Room, Level 3. I took the elevator. The doors were mirrored, but I looked away. I didn't want to see myself. Not like this. Not shaking. Not scared. I kept thinking about the text. You have no idea how close it got. Close to what? When the elevator dinged, it opened to a red hallway. No signage. Just room numbers on matte black doors. I found it halfway down, G3. The garden room. I hesitated. What was I even doing? If someone was inside, what would I say? Hey, my fiancé came home with your wristband and a bite mark. Mind explaining? But I didn't knock. I slid the card. It unlocked. What I found inside wasn't a room. It was a set. The room was surreal. Like something from a movie that makes you feel wrong even when nothing scary is happening. Fake vines hung from the ceiling. Soft piano music played, looping, slightly off tune. There were 5 large velvet chairs arranged in a circle. One had a broken heel under it. Silver. Exactly like the one Annabeth wore last night. There was no bed. No bar. Just that circle of chairs and a small camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling, pointed directly at the center of the room. I should have left. I didn't. Instead, I walked to the side wall where a small wooden cabinet stood. It wasn't locked. Inside were 3 folders. One red, one white, one black. I opened the red one. Inside, photos. Dozens. All Polaroids. All of women. All wearing bridal sashes. All in the same room. Some of them were laughing. Others were crying. One was holding her hands over her mouth, mascara running down her cheeks like war paint. But the worst part? They were dated, labeled, and numbered. Bride number 48. Bride number 49. Bride number 50. Annabeth was number 51. There was a flash drive taped to the white folder. I didn't open that one. Not yet. I was afraid of what might be on it. But I took it. Pocketed it. I knew I was already in too deep. As I turned to leave, the elevator dinged again. Footsteps. I panicked. I shoved the folders back, slammed the cabinet shut, and ducked behind the circle of chairs just as 2 voices entered. Women. Loud. Familiar. One of them was Lauren. Her best friend. Her maid of honor. She was laughing. Told her to burn the napkin. Can you believe she kept it? Then a voice I didn't recognize. Sharper. Colder. She's cracking. You saw her last night. If he finds out, it's over. Lauren scoffed. Clive? He's harmless. He still thinks she's the girl who folds his socks into hearts. Both of them laughed. I could barely breathe. Then the second voice said something that I still don't understand. Something that changed everything. It wasn't supposed to go that far. But the director picked her. I left before they saw me. I waited until they left. Slipped out the back. Heart in my throat. Fists clenched. I don't remember driving home. I just remember shaking in the car, staring at the flash drive like it was a live grenade. I haven't opened it yet. She's still asleep. Probably dreaming. Probably forgetting. But I won't forget. Because I don't think this is just about cheating anymore. I don't even think this was about a party. This was something else. Something orchestrated. And I was never meant to know. It took me over an hour to even look at the flash drive again. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one we picked out together at a garage sale last summer, the one she said had character. I stared at the tiny, black piece of plastic in my hand, barely larger than my thumb, and wondered how something so small could make everything else, my relationship, my trust, my sanity, feel so heavy. She was still asleep upstairs. I could hear her shifting, coughing once, muttering something in her sleep. And I knew I had a window. A small one. If I was going to do this, it had to be now. Before the performance began. Before the lying resumed. Before her eyes softened and her voice turned syrupy and I forgot, just for a second, what I'd already seen. So I did it. I opened my laptop, slid the flash drive in, and waited. Nothing happened at first. Then a single folder popped up. No name. Just a date. 06/03/25, the night of the Bachelorette party. Inside, 2 files. One video. One PDF. I opened the video first. There was no sound at the start. Just grainy footage. The angle was familiar. Same room. Same velvet chairs. That camera in the corner, the one mounted above the cabinet. It had been recording. The footage was time-stamped. 11:06 p.m. I saw Annabeth walk in first, clutching a wine glass, already tipsy. She was wearing that ridiculous sash, last fling queen, and spinning in circles like she was trying to show it off. She didn't look nervous. She looked excited. Lauren followed behind her. Then Naomi. And a fourth woman I didn't recognize. Tall, jet black hair, no sash. She was holding a clipboard. She didn't smile. They sat Annabeth down in the center chair. The others took their seats in the circle. The tall woman stood behind Annabeth and began speaking, though there was no audio. Annabeth nodded once, then again, faster. She laughed, but it looked forced. She reached for her wine glass, but the clipboard woman took it from her. Suddenly, the door opened. A man walked in. I couldn't see his face clearly. He kept his back to the camera, but he was tall, wearing a black dress shirt, sleeves rolled up, no tie. He walked to Annabeth, stood behind her. The clipboard woman said something. He responded with a single nod, and then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a blindfold. He tied it over Annabeth's eyes. She didn't resist. That's when the sound kicked in. It was sudden, like someone hit unmute halfway through a horror movie. The clipboard woman's voice came through, clear and cold. Bride 51 is ready. Another voice crackled over what sounded like an intercom. Approved. Begin level 1. I paused the video. I didn't want to see what level 1 was. I didn't even know what that meant. This wasn't a party. This wasn't a prank. This wasn't even something you could write off as drunk girls making bad decisions. This was organized, scripted, sanctioned. I closed the video and opened the PDF, hands shaking. It was a protocol sheet, titled, Garden Room, Level Structure for Bridal Program Candidates. Underneath, a list of names. Bride 43 through Bride 51. Each one with a check mark under various columns labeled. Consent, Control, Contact, Compromise. Next to Annabeth's name, Bride 51, were 3 green checks. Consent, Contact, Compromise. Control was blank. Below the chart was a short note. Bride 51 exhibits high adaptability and emotional agility. Subject required no chemical prompting. Responsive to director test. Suitable for Phase 2 pending groom screening. Groom. That's me. I couldn't breathe for a few seconds. What the hell did they mean pending groom screening? Was I part of this? Was this some psych experiment? A cult? A performance art thing gone insane? No, this wasn't performance. This was design. I closed the laptop and stared across the kitchen at her purse, still slumped against the counter from last night. There was more in there. I was sure of it now. I needed to know what else she was hiding. Because if she was Bride 51, and there had been 50 others before her, I had a sick feeling in my gut that this wasn't a one-off incident. This wasn't about love or loyalty or even betrayal. This was about selection. And I was starting to realize I wasn't the one marrying Annabeth. She had married into something else entirely. She was still asleep when I stepped back into the bedroom, snoring softly, one hand curled under her chin like a child. The morning light painted her face with soft gold, and for 1 second, just one, I saw the woman I proposed to. The woman who made pancakes in oversized sweaters and cried over Pixar movies. But then I remembered the blindfold. The man. The laughter that wasn't real. The clipboard. I turned away and went back to the kitchen. Her purse was still there, folded awkwardly on itself like she'd dropped it in a rush. I sat down on the floor in front of the island, pulled it into my lap, and opened it with the kind of hesitation usually reserved for defusing bombs. Inside, the usual things: phone, wallet, keys. But then I noticed how organized everything was. Too organized. Like someone had curated the contents. Nothing rattled. Nothing felt loose. Everything was zipped, folded, placed. The first thing I pulled out was a small black makeup bag. Inside were fake eyelashes, gum, Advil, and a folded piece of paper tucked into the bottom lining. I nearly missed it. It was a list, handwritten in faint pencil. To pack, don't forget. Disposable phone. Emergency cash, check. Change of shirt. Wipes for skin contact. Birth certificate, in case. Nail polish remover, if marked. No photos. Call Erica if cold feet only. There was more scribbled at the bottom, like she'd written it while pacing, half-focused. Don't take anything you don't want to explain later. No visible bruises. Keep it PG sexy. Smile with teeth. Don't look too eager. Say it was karaoke. Say it was just drinks. Say nothing happened. I stared at the word birth certificate for a full minute before my brain let me think again. What kind of night out makes you bring your birth certificate? Unless it wasn't supposed to be a night out. Unless she wasn't supposed to come back. That's when I found the second phone. It was a cheap burner, the kind you get from a gas station rack for emergencies or if you're trying not to be found. The screen was smudged, the battery low, but it was still on. No password. There were only 2 apps, messages and voice memos. No contacts. No browser. Nothing else. In the messages folder, 1 thread. A number with no name. Just an area code from a state Annabeth had never even visited, as far as I knew. I clicked it. The thread only had 5 texts, all from that number. You will know what to do if he finds it. He shouldn't be a problem. Smile. Distract. Get back in control. Don't break early. You know what happens when they break early. 3 more nights. That's all. If it burns, burn with it. That last one made my skin crawl. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't want to know. But it was the voice memos that nearly made me drop the phone. There were 3 recordings. The first one was just 12 seconds long. Annabeth's voice, whispering, "If you're listening to this." I guess I couldn't stop it. I tried. I really did. But I think you were right, Clive. About the elevator. About the night we met. About me. The night we met? My mouth went dry. We met at a bookstore. I spilled coffee on her sleeve. We laughed. She offered to buy me a replacement. It was cute. Organic. Serendipity. Or at least, that's what I thought. I played the second recording. Longer this time. Almost a minute. She sounded shaken. No background noise. Just her voice, brittle like a match about to snap. They said I could opt out. That it was voluntary. That he'd never know. But now I'm not sure if anything was real. If I ever really had a choice. I can't remember when it started feeling like me and not just the script. I think they got into my head. Or maybe I let them. I don't know what's mine anymore. I was frozen. Heart pounding. Then came the third and final memo. 43 seconds. No whispering this time. She sounded calm. Numb. Like someone who had just stepped outside of their own body. If he finds the flash drive, it's over. They'll come for me. Maybe for him too. There's no phase 2 if he doesn't choose. That's the rule. That's always been the rule. They can't force it. But they can make it hard to say no. She paused. I could hear her breathing. Clive, if you're listening. I'm sorry. I thought I could love you and survive this. I was wrong. You were never the test. I was. And I think I failed. Click. I sat there on the floor of our kitchen, phone in one hand, list in the other, with the voice of the woman I was supposed to marry bouncing around inside my skull like a dying echo. None of it made sense. Yet it explained everything. The way she looked at me sometimes like she was memorizing my face. The way she never talked about her past in detail. The strange hesitation she had when I brought up kids. The panic in her eyes the one time we got stuck in an elevator. She knew something. She always knew. And now I was caught between 2 impossible truths. Either the woman I loved had been forced into something unspeakable, or she had been complicit from the beginning. Either way, I wasn't sleeping next to a stranger. I was sleeping next to a survivor. Or a handler. Maybe both. When she finally woke up, it wasn't with a scream or panic or confusion. She didn't ask where I was. She didn't call out my name. She walked into the kitchen barefoot, wearing my old college hoodie, like nothing had happened. Like I wasn't sitting at the table in front of her with the flash drive in one hand and the burner phone in the other. Her eyes flicked down, saw both, and something, just a flicker, tightened in her jaw. But she didn't gasp. She didn't cry. She smiled. That smile wrecked me. I had rehearsed what I was going to say. All night. Every sentence. I was going to slam the phone on the table, demand answers, threaten to cancel the wedding. I imagined standing over her, voice shaking with fury. But instead, when I opened my mouth, the words that came out were small. Weak. What is this? That's all I could manage. She looked at the phone again. Then at me. She slowly pulled out a chair and sat down across from me. Not rushed. Not guilty. Calm. Like she'd been preparing for this moment far longer than I had. Which part? She asked. Her voice wasn't cold. It was careful. Controlled. Practiced. The messages, I said. The videos. The garden room. The fact that I found your name under a label that read, Bride 51. That you packed a birth certificate. That you said you were never supposed to be with me. What the hell does that mean? She closed her eyes. For a second, she looked tired. Not sleepy, soul tired. When she opened them, she reached across the table, and I flinched. That hurt her. I could see it in her face. But I didn't move closer. I couldn't. She pulled her hand back and laced her fingers in front of her. I'm not allowed to tell you, she said softly. But I think that stopped mattering a while ago. What is it? I asked. Is it a cult? A blackmail ring? Government program? What the hell did you sign up for? She let out a breath that almost turned into a laugh, but didn't quite make it. It started out as a psychological study, she said. That's how they recruited us. Grad students. Young professionals. People who wouldn't be missed if they backed out halfway through. They said it was about behavioral evolution in romantic pair bonding environments. That's the phrase they used. All clinical. All sterile. But it wasn't clinical, I said. There was a man in that room with you. She didn't deny it. He's called the director. I blinked. That's not a job title. That's a villain in a Bond movie. I know, she said. But it's what they called him. And it wasn't about sex. Not really. It was about loyalty, compromise, control. They studied how far someone could be pushed, what they'd confess to, what they'd protect under pressure. So you were an experiment? She hesitated. At first. Then I became part of the system. Once you're in long enough, you either get out or you go deeper. And going deeper meant being chosen for field placement. Field placement, I said. What are you, a spy? She looked at me, really looked, and her voice dropped. No, Clive. I'm your fiancé. It was the way she said it that twisted my gut. Not because it was a lie, but because she believed it. Or wanted to. Maybe both. I didn't lie to you, she said. Not about the important things. I just wasn't supposed to let it go this far. You were the assignment, yes. But I fell out of protocol. That's why they're watching now. That's why the burner messages are coming faster. They know I'm out of sync. You mean they're still monitoring us? Right now? She nodded. My blood ran cold. Do they know I found the flash drive? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. We both jumped. She stood up too fast, knocked the chair over. Her eyes went wide, not scared. Alert, like a soldier hearing the first snap of a trap. I looked toward the door. Don't answer it. She shook her head slowly. If it's them, not answering will be worse. I was already walking to the living room window, peeking through the blinds. There was a white sedan idling across the street. Tinted windows. No plates. Not even a rental barcode. Just sitting there, humming like a predator. Another knock. This time harder. More urgent. My fists clenched. Call the cops. She laughed bitterly. What are you going to tell them? That your bride is being followed by a research group that doesn't exist, who holds meetings in velvet death chambers called the garden room. They'd institutionalize you, Clive. And then the knock stopped. I waited, heart in my throat, but no voice came. No note slid under the door. No package dropped. Annabeth backed up slowly from the entryway and whispered, "We need to go. Right now." Go where? To someone who broke protocol and lived. I grabbed my keys. She grabbed the burner. Neither of us said anything as we locked the front door behind us. But as we reached the car, I glanced back toward the window and saw a red envelope stuck between the bricks of our porch. It hadn't been there before. No name. Just the number. 52. We drove for nearly 2 hours, mostly in silence. The only sounds were the tires grinding against the road and the occasional clicking of Annabeth's thumb against the volume button on the burner phone, checking it was still off. It was raining lightly, one of those slow, whispering rains that makes the world feel like it's holding its breath. I kept glancing at her when I thought she wasn't looking. She never cried, never explained, never reached out for me. But her hands didn't stop moving, tapping, twisting, adjusting her sleeves, then readjusting them. She was unraveling in slow motion, but I didn't know if it was from fear or guilt. Eventually, she said just one sentence. Her name's Elodie. She was bride 36. I didn't respond. My mouth was too dry, and the number stuck in my throat like a splinter. We pulled off the main road and followed a winding gravel path behind what looked like an abandoned nursery. Ivy had swallowed most of the greenhouse structures, and everything smelled faintly of rust and wet soil. A wooden gate stood half-hinged near a cracked brick wall, and beyond it, a single trailer sat hidden beneath a canopy of overgrown trees. Annabeth got out first. She didn't knock. She walked around to the back of the trailer, crouched by a row of cinder blocks, and lifted a flap of weather-warped wood to reveal a keypad. For numbers. She punched them in without hesitation. 4 to 3, 6 to 5. The back door clicked open. That's when I realized. This wasn't a place you find. This was a place you're given, when you've earned it, or needed it. Inside, the trailer was surprisingly clean. Sparse, but warm. Old books stacked sideways on shelves. Candles melted into bowls. Notes scribbled on napkins and taped to walls. On a dusty table sat 3 Polaroids. One of Annabeth, one of a woman I didn't recognize, and one that had been torn down the middle. Then I saw her. She stepped out from behind a beaded curtain, hair short, eyes sunken, wearing an oversized sweater and holding a pair of gardening shears like it was second nature. Her skin was pale and weather-worn. like someone who hadn't been touched by sunlight or trust in years. Elodie, I asked, unsure. She looked at Annabeth first, ignoring me. Why did you bring him here? I didn't have a choice, Annabeth said quietly. They left an envelope. He knows. Everything. Elodie stared at me. Bride 51. Groom 52. My stomach turned. Is that what I am? I asked. Just a number on their board? She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed to a wooden chair near the table. Sit. What followed over the next hour felt like falling down the deepest well imaginable, with no echo, no end, and no hope of climbing out. Elodie told me that the garden room wasn't the only room. It was one of 7, each designed for a different phase of compatibility testing, emotional break modeling, and personality override simulations. The program began almost 2 decades ago as a military-adjacent research initiative focused on shaping loyalty under high-stress relationship conditions. Think MKUltra meets couples therapy, except no one in the relationship is ever told the truth. They would find candidates who showed strong dissociative traits, people who could lie without flinching, mimic love, charm their way through rooms. They called them chameleons. These chameleons would be trained over months, sometimes years, and then deployed into real-world relationship pairings under the guise of organic encounters. But to what end? I asked. What do they get out of it? Why pair a trained manipulator with someone like me? Elodie didn't hesitate. Because if you can break a loyal man in love, you can break anything. A soldier, a whistleblower, a diplomat, a judge. They want to see who bends, who snaps, who becomes like them. You weren't the subject. You were the stress test. I sat there in stunned silence while the storm picked up outside. Wind howled through the trees, and the trailer groaned like it was remembering something it wished it could forget. Elodie stood and pulled open a drawer filled with black USB drives. Dozens, each labeled with initials and dates. She selected one and handed it to me. Yours, she said. Your file. I pulled it before I left. Everything they logged about you. Every reaction. Every decision. Every conversation with Annabeth. I turned to Annabeth. You recorded me? Her eyes welled, but she didn't look away. Not everything. Not after the second month. I started turning off the mic when we were alone. That's why they flagged me. That's why I was pulled for reevaluation. They thought I was compromised. I wanted to scream, throw something, cry. But instead I just sat there, holding that flash drive like it weighed 10 pounds, feeling like the world had turned inside out. You want the truth? Elodie asked, kneeling beside me. You were a perfect candidate. Trusting, empathetic. You believed in love like it was oxygen. And that's exactly what they needed. Someone to test the limits of the synthetic heart. I looked at her lost. Synthetic heart. She tapped the side of her temple. The thing they put in people like her. People like me. Not a machine. Not literal. But something programmed so deep into our training that we stop recognizing our own instincts. Love, fear, guilt, all of it becomes data. Unless what? Unless we glitch. She looked at Annabeth now. She glitched. We left after midnight. Elodie gave us burner IDs, safe house coordinates, and one warning. You have 3 days before they send someone less polite. The director doesn't like mess. Bride 52 was supposed to be scrubbed already. If they gave you a number, Clive, you're not just a subject anymore. You're a participant. As we got back in the car, thunder rolling in the distance, I realized something terrifying. Whatever game we were in, I was no longer the pawn. I was the variable. And that made me dangerous, which meant they were coming. The safe house Elodie sent us to was nothing like the trailer. It was cold, sterile, and buried in a part of the mountains where the GPS started to glitch as if even satellites didn't want to acknowledge it existed. There was no Wi-Fi, no reception. The air smelled like pine and old insulation, and the only things in the cabin were a mattress on the floor, a cracked coffee pot, and a folder duct taped under the sink that read, "If you're reading this, they found you." We didn't open it. Not that night. Annabeth didn't sleep. I watched her sit by the window for hours, her knees pulled to her chest, her eyes scanning the trees like shadows would step out and call her name. I tried to talk to her, tried to understand what was real and what was performance, but everything she said felt like a half-truth carefully wrapped in sincerity. She told me she loved me. I asked her if that was programming or if she actually meant it. She didn't answer. She just looked away. I slept for maybe 20 minutes. When I woke up, There were boot prints in the snow outside the cabin. They were fresh. Too fresh. I grabbed the emergency phone Elodie had packed in our bag. Old school. Analog. Probably tapped, but better than nothing, and checked the time. 4:17 a.m. The prints led from the tree line to the porch, paused at the door, and disappeared back into the woods. No knock. No damage. Just a visitation. A warning. Annabeth checked the locks twice. Then she handed me the folder from under the sink and said, "If we're already burned, you need to see what's inside." I opened it. Inside were photos. 12 of them. Each showed a different man in a different city, next to a different woman wearing a variation of that same sash, bride. The men looked happy, clueless. Most of them were mid-laugh, arm around the woman like they'd known each other forever. On the back of each photo was a single handwritten word. Expired. And then I reached the last photo. It was me, taken from across the street. I was outside a bookstore, holding coffee, looking at my phone. The timestamp said 7:32 a.m., February 10th, 2022. The day I met Annabeth. Except I hadn't noticed the woman in the background. But she was there, standing just behind a parking meter, half hidden by a tree, wearing black. "Elodie, what the hell is this?" I asked. My voice wasn't angry, it was hollow. Like I already knew the answer, but needed to hear it just to believe it. Annabeth took a deep breath. "They cycle us out. Every 10 brides. A cleanse. They say it's for security. Control. But it's really to eliminate variables that grow too human. The chameleons that glitch. They call it the reset. Elodie was supposed to follow you that day. She was watching to make sure I made contact. I didn't know until weeks later. By then, I didn't want out." "You were marked to expire too, weren't you?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "I just didn't know when." At 6:21 a.m., we heard the knock. Not the rapid pounding of someone trying to break in. Just 3 deliberate, perfectly timed knocks. Annabeth's face went white. She stood frozen, lips parted, hands shaking. I reached for the fire poker beside the door, not that it would help, and mouthed, "Don't move." I opened the peephole. He was standing in the snow, wearing a black coat and holding a broken umbrella that barely covered him. His head was tilted slightly, like he was listening for something. His left hand was tucked into his pocket, but I could see the glint of something metallic strapped to his wrist. He didn't knock again. He just stood there. I whispered to Annabeth, "Do you know him?" She nodded once, eyes locked to the floor. "That's the auditor." "The what?" "If the director is the architect, the auditor is the eraser." My stomach dropped. We didn't open the door. We waited, watched. But after 7 minutes, he turned and walked back down the trail, his umbrella dragging behind him in the snow like a broken wing. I opened the door when he was out of sight. Ran outside. Nothing but prints. But there, hanging from the knob, was a flash drive. No label. No case. Just the bare metal, slightly warm. I didn't bring it inside. I took the old laptop Elodie gave us, booted it in the shed behind the cabin, and plugged it in while Annabeth watched from the doorway. There was only one file. A video. No timestamp. It opened on a room we hadn't seen before. All white. Cold. Medical. Annabeth was sitting on a metal bench, barefoot, wearing a paper gown. Her wrists were red. Her eyes were glassy. A voice from off-screen said, "Bride 51 has been scheduled for early termination. Psychological metrics incompatible with Phase 2. Another voice responded, "Override requested. Groom 52 is responding with unexpected resistance. Potential for reversal." Then silence. Annabeth looked into the camera. No makeup. No mask. She whispered, "Clive, if they show you this, it means I couldn't stop them. It means I wasn't enough. But you were real to me. I don't care what they put in my file. You were the only thing they didn't plan." Then the screen went black. I sat there in the shed, shivering, laptop buzzing under my fingertips, while the woman I thought I knew stood behind me with her arms crossed over her chest like they were the only thing holding her together. None of this was random. Not the party. Not the bachelorette night. Not the kiss. Not the lies. Not even me. I wasn't just part of the experiment anymore. I was the last stage. And they hadn't given up. They had reinvested. Which meant we were in more danger than ever. I didn't sleep the night after the video. Neither did she. We sat side by side on the wooden floor of the shed behind the safe house, the wind screaming through the mountains like some ancient thing had been disturbed and wanted the world to know. The flash drive was still glowing faintly in the USB port. I couldn't bring myself to remove it. It felt like a fuse that hadn't finished burning. She sat with her head on my shoulder. No words. No promises. Just breath, steady and quiet. Like it was the only honest thing between us. Sometime around 5 a.m., I said the thing I never thought I would say again. I believe you. She didn't respond. Her fingers just tightened around mine. And that was enough. For the first time since this nightmare began, I wasn't waiting for the lie. I wasn't watching her with suspicion. I wasn't looking for a trap door in her expression. She was terrified, but not for herself. For me. When the auditor came back, it was different. There was no knock. Just the cabin's front door creaking open, quiet and deliberate. The cold spilled in like smoke, filling the hallway, turning our breath to ghosts. He stepped into the living room, alone, the broken umbrella gone. No weapons. No words. Just a small black box in his left hand. Annabeth stepped between us, her arms wide. Her voice was firm. You can't have him. The auditor tilted his head, just slightly, like a machine registering a glitch in its sequence. He's not part of the program, he said. You compromised your role. The test is void. Subject must be cleared. I know, she said, but we're not running anymore. He looked at her, then at me. Are you aware of her full role? He asked me. Yes, I lied. And I don't care. He looked down at the box. Press something on it. A soft beep echoed through the room. For the record, he said, you were never supposed to be given the choice. None of them are. Then maybe you chose the wrong groom, I said. He stared at me for a long, unsettling moment. Then, without a word, he turned and walked out. Just like that. Later, we found the black box on the table. Inside, two things, a small card with a symbol I didn't recognize, and a folded piece of paper. On the paper, handwritten in block letters. Reset refused. Observation ended. Subject reassigned. Status untracked. That was 6 months ago. We're living somewhere else now. Somewhere quieter. I won't say where, not because I'm afraid, but because that chapter is over. We got married last month. No parties. No sashes. No fake smiles. Just us, barefoot in the woods behind a rented cabin. Rings we made ourselves. Vows whispered through tears we didn't hide. She still has bad nights. So do I. We both wake up sometimes thinking there's a knock at the door or a shadow watching from the trees. But it fades faster now. I don't ask about the garden room anymore. I don't need to. She told me everything that mattered. And some days, I even believe we weren't supposed to find each other. But we did anyway. Because they forgot one simple rule. You can design an experiment. You can write a script. You can even control the outcome. But you can't predict love when it stops being a variable and becomes the error in your system.